Welcome to the Paul Morris Podcast. We have an amazing guest today, Neyshia Go, and I am also joined by my business partner, Josh Spitzen. We're going to talk about how Neyshia has used her day job essentially to educate her about real estate and how she transitioned that into making some very interesting purchases.
So grateful to be here with you, Nisha. I've had the good fortune of getting to know you, one of the sharpest, kind, focused real estate leaders that I know. And I know
Thank
some
you.
pretty powerful people. And we're extremely grateful and excited to learn from you today. So thank you
Thank
for
you.
being here.
Well, I'm happy to be here and I'll do my best to share as many nuggets as I can.
So one of the things you cut your teeth on is representing developers, and so that's a very unique experience, and very unique viewpoint. How were you able to use that, or did you use that to begin to invest on your own?
So, what's interesting is when I started in the business, I thought, oh, to be a developer is like the goal. The irony is, especially through market cycles and conditions, I look at it as a supplement because there's a lot less risk when you just sell the real estate.
Mhm.
So I've been very, very selective about the projects that we've done. So, and I'm actively looking for a good investment opportunity that's passive income. But, there's different routes of investing to take in real estate. For me, residential feels like home, right? So, and that doesn't necessarily have to be single family, but anything that has a residential component, a
Mhm.
driver that is people that live there, that feels like something that I can wrap my head around a little bit better.
So multifamily.
Multifamily or single family spec, which
Mhm.
is what I've invested in. I've not done a single family spec by myself at this point because they've been larger price points, and candidly, I've basically aligned myself with other the developers I work with,
Yep.
right? And what's nice about that is I already know their proof of concept. I already have a track record. I'm going to end up selling it for them as well. So, I'm invested in a couple of projects. I've done a few. They've ranged from four. This one is going to be a big one. The one that I'm actively working right now is going to have an exit of 20 million. And it's pretty cool to be at that stage in my life one day before I turn 36, which is literally
Happy early
tomorrow.
birthday.
That's
Thank
awesome.
you.
Happy
I
birthday
looked
in
at the
advance.
date on the
That's
consent form.
cool.
I was like, oh, my birthday's tomorrow.
22nd.
Yeah.
I love it.
So, it's a dream, right? Like I never thought I would be in this position. Growing up in Northern California, like I said, was very modest background that I'd be investing and playing in this world. Actively on the passive income side, I'm looking for something multifamily to purchase in some other neighborhoods, probably outside of Los Angeles, if I'm going to be totally honest.
Sure.
But in other parts of California that I'm familiar with.
Mm.
And I'm sort of toying with the idea of next year buying some industrial. But
Mhm.
that to me I need to learn a lot more. And again, I think maybe through this podcast, if anybody's been watching, they'll understand that I want to learn something. I'm not just going to blindly invest money.
Right.
So,
Well, I think that's super important. And a few of the things that you mentioned that are key is, if you're going to invest with somebody else, first of all, you started your real estate sales career, talking about when I needed to co-list with somebody that had experience in that particular area. I'm going to bring my skill set, but I'm going to lean on them. So similarly, investing, that the track record is very important.
yeah, I mean, look, I will also say though, you have to be very, very careful who you invest with and do JVs with, because I'd say 80% of the time, maybe 70% of the time, those deals go bad because you have too much. There's too much closeness for all the reasons we were talking
Mhm.
about earlier. It's like when you have too much of a friend dynamic, sometimes things get a little nasty. So my husband and I were talking about it because we gut remodeled our first, or we gut remodeled, or we remodeled by gutting our first whole house together. It's not our first house, but it's just we actually gut remodeled. Um, he thinks it was a much more fun process, I think, than I thought it was because I played designer. Because that's one of the other things that has been a big skill set of mine is that I'm very hands-on with the finish selections slash staging to curate a property. And I think they always look a little bit more designed as a
Mhm,
result.
mhm, mhm.
So on this one, I actually did all the design finishes thinking it would be relatively easy, but I had no idea what my husband was going to be like as a design client, and he's quite picky. So I said to him, I said, if we do this again, I mean, for spec, it's different. But I said, if we ever do this for ourselves again, I was like, I'm hiring a designer. I'm not going to be the one putting together mood boards, in the middle of the night to try to get your approval. But that being said, we probably are going to do a couple of flips. We have a home in Santa Barbara as well, and that market, I think we can really shake some things up there. So,
And
Well,
it's probably also, I just want to, the value that you bring to your developer clients from that design standpoint is probably also, I'm guessing, you, beyond the ones you invest in, that they're looking for your insight
oh
in,
yeah, I
you know.
mean, it's so funny because I look at plans on almost every project that I work on, especially before they get submitted, because I'm able to say at this price point, you need a dirty kitchen, you need a scullery. At this
mhm,
price point and at this square footage, the scale of these rooms are too small. What's your ceiling height? This kitchen doesn't have enough cabinetry. Where's your pantry? Do you have a coat closet? It's all those things, right, that we have to keep in mind in order to effectuate a good sale. I wanted to get involved because I realized my job was gonna be a hell of a lot easier if they would listen to the input I have.
mhm.
I have a client right now, and he's kind of a strange they have a strange view outside of one of the bedrooms, and I'm like, "Okay, rather than, like, mask it, why don't we own it and then just kinda make it like a wellness area, right? Because it's kind of against the side of a hill. I'm like, if you kinda make it cool and zenny and you put in a Hinoki tub and you put in a sauna and a steam room, all of a sudden it becomes a destination instead of
Mhm,
an
mhm,
eyesore.
mhm.
There's just certain things like that and those nuances that I think improve both the, asset, but also the ability to sell a property.
Also, when I was reviewing the 50 plus $1 million condos in New York, it was amazing how the developers got the idea that, like, this is the particular high-end oak floor that everyone is looking for. And then by the time at the end of the day, it's like one, at even at that price point, these things are looking identical. Like,
Yeah.
look, what is going on, you know? And I think you bringing a particular flair to it, and this is a great lesson for anybody who is coming at it from the investment side is you know, and I'll go a little off path by saying um, one of the people that we had on the podcast was my chiropractor, and he has, number one, he spots neighborhoods, and number two, he has impeccable and sort of eclectic taste, and he can, whenever he has done his own houses and then sold them, he's gotten way more than price per square foot than what would
Mm.
easily has gotten way more price per square foot for that particular area. Penciling that into your deal, I think, is a little risky, but understanding that, you mentioned bespoke, that you're going to put a product out there. What are you competing at? Whatever price point you're going to land at, whether it's $700,000 or $7 million, what do the $700,000 houses look like, and how is yours going to jump off the shelf?
How
I
is
mean,
it distinguished?
I have a lot of little trade secrets, even just in the installation of things
Mhm,
that don't cost you any more money,
mhm,
that make a much more meaningful experience for a buyer.
mhm,
Like I have a client who she puts in a little like a foot niche in the shower.
mhm,
People are like, "What's that for?" It's so that you don't have to lift your leg unassisted. You can shave your like it's for the wife, right?
mhm.
I mean, I assume it's for the wife. So
So,
yeah, you can shave, right? Like there's just those little things. Sometimes it's hidden appliance drawers.
mhm,
Sometimes it's storage in the garage. Like there's also those nuanced things that people do and they're like, "Oh, I love that I don't have to do this." And it's such a great idea because I think subconsciously it also says to a potential buyer, this person put this much thought into the finishes or the building of this house. So they probably did a really good job, right? Because they care. And I also think that it's really good to be more personal or
Mhm.
have some interesting touches, but you do have to, if you're going to build it for mass market, have a generally neutral palette that will
Mhm.
appeal mass market. I find that the most success we have is when it is very clean, very on trend, timelessly on
Mhm.
trend in terms of finishes and palette as a whole. But then there's fun, interesting, unexpected touches.
Mhm.
Like the powder bathroom is always the place to play,
Mhm.
right? Colors. I mean, my own powder bathroom is dark green, with a most insane green marble and vessel sinks and brass
Mhm.
fixtures.
Mhm.
It's moody, right? You want to go in there and have a cigarette, basically. But you can play with everything. You can play with those certain elements to make a house feel cool. So if somebody walks away and says, okay, we saw 10 houses today. Which house did you like? I liked the one with the green bathroom. I liked the one with the that crazy closet.
Mhm.
I liked that one.
Mhm.
It's being super intentional and always again putting yourself in their shoes, thinking about how this is gonna be received by that potential buyer, and how are you gonna set yourself apart such that they have an emotional attachment.
Mhm.
I also think that if you come from either a world that appreciates high design or you play in it like I do, there's ways to inject that into entry level price points.
Mhm.
Right?
Absolutely.
Like, there's certain finishes, certain stones you can find, there's certain color palettes you can find, gives you that richness. You don't
Mhm.
have to do what every run of the mill developer is doing in
Mhm.
that
Mhm.
neighborhood.
And the house, I firmly believe, and I've seen lots of people do it, is use your own house as an investment vehicle. And so what that means is, instead of, it's the opposite of buying the best house in the best house in the best neighborhood is the cliche, right? But the best house in a very good neighborhood, there's not much upside to it. So,
I'll give you a funny story. My husband and I were very contentious over our shower, our primary bathroom shower. I've been working with developers for such a long time that they would even call me and say, "Which door lock should I buy? Should it be MTech or Schlage or whatever for a certain product?" Like, that's how granular we get
mhm,
about value engineering. And I take my husband to the slab yards to start picking out stones. And this is for our personal house. And he goes, "That, I need that. I fall in love with that." It's a Calcutta Macchia Vecchia.
mhm,
So for anybody who doesn't know what that is, it's probably one of the most expensive stones out
mhm,
there.
mhm,
It's gonna
mhm.
be like I think that stone ended up being $170 per square foot. Okay. I
Is that the Calcutta that has the gold through it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
See?
It's the gray and the gold in it,
Mhm,
and I had already said I had looked and looked and looked for our kitchen, and I was trying to find cheaper options, but I said it eventually, I was like, "I'm just gonna do the Calcutta Borghini," because that to me also says something, but I only needed 3 slabs.
mhm,
So, I had this idea always to do our whole shower in slab, the whole thing.
mhm,
So, big format slabs, like it's a 10 or $20 million house. I don't live in a 10 or $20 million house, but I live nicely. So my husband's like, "I really want this." And I'm like, "We cannot spend this much on stone. I mean, on the shower." And so I was trying to convince him over and over and over again, "Can we go porcelain? Can we go something cheaper?" Like, just because we're going to have to do the ceiling, the walls, the floor, everything, right? And he just kept saying to me, "But aren't you gonna walk in one day and just know it's fake?" And I'm like, "I'm not gonna think about that. I'm gonna think that it's a nice shower." He eventually convinced me. We spent $100,000 on the shower slab.
mhm,
And I can't help but get in that shower every day and actually feel good because is so nice.
mhm.
But what I realized was this is a house for us to enjoy. And at the
Right.
end of the day, we were smart about the choices we made because they were impactful,
Mhm,
and I have a feeling in my heart of hearts, somebody one day is just gonna knock on our door and say, "I'll offer you X."
mhm,
That's how we're gonna end up selling that
mhm.
house. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And to that point, one of the ways to really create highlight, I'll go back to fashion, and I have to say it wasn't my idea. But a long time ago someone said to me, like, you can get away with the inexpensive this or the inexpensive that, but like don't go cheap on belt and shoes.
Yeah,
Right? So
it's true.
you can mix and match, but like spend that money, on belt and shoes. So it's a couple of, going crazy expensive on one particular item that's going to pop,
Yeah,
especially.
it's your impact, it's your wow
Yeah,
moment.
it is. It's a lot of money for a shower for sure, but a shower relative to the full house is a smaller piece of it. So, again, another one would be, you
Your
know,
kitchen.
yeah, kitchen for sure, or just spending if you had a certain price level that you were building to, spending 3x what you would normally do on a front door, for example.
Right.
So you get the like super cool pivot door. It makes that difference. And one thing that I did on the house before this one, and we did a complete remodel, and so we kept the foundation and whatever. And one of the things that just happened to be there was this like it wasn't even a basement. It was like super weird, like little room down these stairs. And we just like, I'm almost like, it's so bad that like we might as well like you could just like fill it in, but why do that? And what we ended up doing was it was in a place where it was there was the sort of downstairs living room and then, living area. And what we did was we put a bookcase up.
Oh, yeah, that's cool.
Right. We put a bookcase up and then, it became
Mhm.
the secret room. And not to be too not to gender over generalize, but I will tell you, there were aspects of the house that generally the wives will focus on, but there wasn't it was always the guy that came in the house. He's like, "Wait, the secret room? I don't know what it is about a secret room that like appeals."
So, I'm in process of putting a secret
Mm.
wine,
Yeah, that's what we did. We did
closet.
one,
Yeah,
yeah.
so I'm doing the same thing, but that's also because I think about a lot of people's needs, my husband's needs. So we actually have a downstairs in that house, and we have a downstairs stairwell. Those things are kind of depressing and sad. But
Super depressing.
I had this idea to make a really loud splash. It is from the floor all the way through the ceiling, covered in
Mhm,
a very loud wallpaper.
mhm,
So as soon as you open that door and turn that light on, and all those fixtures are brass, and everything
mhm,
is like a brass knob and hand,
mhm,
in there, you're transported. So then when you
mhm,
go downstairs, so the whole thing down there is a man cave, because I realized my husband's
mhm,
sports things needed to live somewhere. Otherwise, they were gonna start to encroach the rest of our beautiful cream white paletted house. So
mhm.
we actually painted that whole room blue, and we made a speakeasy man cave.
Right.
And it's like that again, it's another highlight, you know, she's probably gonna fall in love stereotypically. She's or he can, for whatever reason, whatever, it doesn't matter, can fall in love with my crazy closet,
Mhm.
but he's gonna fall in love, again, stereotypical,
Yep.
right? He is gonna fall in love with the sports man cave with the speakeasy door.
Right.
Yep.
And there are just those things that every single house in that price point, and it wasn't a low price point. We ended up selling the house at, north of $6 million, but in Santa Monica. So it's an expensive place, expensive area. But you're not going to find a $6 million house in Santa Monica that has the wine cellar behind the secret door.
Yeah.
It doesn't cost that much more to make a couple of elements that make that thing totally pop in
Yeah.
that area. And it is a great way to enjoy and elevate
Yeah,
your
totally.
your living and I still do it in a way that with some ROI in mind.
Of course.
Yeah.
And you're enjoying it too. So beyond the business
Yeah.
Absolutely.
piece, that's, and
If you
that's
can value engineer the rest of it,
yeah.
right? I think then you have that we
Mhm,
agree on this, right? You have a little bit of extra budget to play for some of the fun things.
mhm,
I think at the end of the day, if you know you're going to build something that every time a friend comes over, you're going to want to show it off,
mhm,
it's going to have some wow factor to somebody who's going to want to buy your house.
mhm.
So I think having a few of those touches is always awesome.
Yep.
And no one focuses on the the third bedroom, or even if it's third bedroom with ensuite, bath. You can't. That is where I wouldn't go cheap, but that is where you can save money to then throw it into, the Super Calcutta shower
Yeah,
in the
we went
main.
with a really nice Italian travertine tile, full slab,
Right.
still integrated shower niche. And we did Roman clay in all of our bathrooms. We have wallpaper in that closet in the
Mhm,
back of the
mhm.
closet just because it's cool. I mean, we
Some
went
nice
extra.
touches,
We
yeah.
did like there is pretty much nothing that we didn't do.
Mhm.
But, at the end of the day, it was important to us to make sure that our house felt really cool and bespoke. And I think we have one of the coolest houses in the neighborhood.
I love it.
People are willing to pay for value, period.
Yeah.
Well, and they're also, especially right now, I think COVID did this to, I mean, this really got amplified during COVID. People are willing to pay a premium for done and like high styling.
Mhm.
I was just underwriting a house actually under the jewel box concept, which is kind of a more
Super
challenging
cool.
one, which is you take a smaller house in the average size, but you make it super cool, super high stylized design. Can you then elevate the comparable price per square foot. The Can you raise the ceiling? And there's inherent risk in that,
Mhm.
but, if you do it in the right market with the right factors in mind, you can really win on that
And
model.
you have someone that really has a keen design eye like
Yeah.
yourself.
Well, that's one of the great ways to illustrate the jewel box idea is to flip it. And so what I saw on my street in Santa Monica was, things were go, go, go at the time. And so what I saw was, somebody paid top dollar for a tear down. And then what they did was they built as many square feet as they possibly could, as inexpensively as they could, knowing, okay, so maybe I won't get the average price per square foot, but instead of making it a really nice, 3,500 square foot house, I'm gonna go for I mean,
Yeah.
it was literally
Overbuilt.
Home Depot 5,000 square feet instead of really nice 3,500. And that's saying nothing bad about Home Depot, but when you're talking about a luxury market, y
You have to go beyond that,
yeah.
yeah.
So
Very, very
that's the opposite, and I would walk by this house and be like, who eventually is going to buy this house? Because we're still talking about, over $1,000 a square foot. Who's going to spend $6 million for this house that looks like it's a track home? And what that developer was doing. I don't know the developer, but I know the developer, but I didn't know, I wasn't inside of his underwriting. But clearly, what his underwriting was, let me get as many square feet as I possibly can for as little money that's going to raise and in a certain market that
Yeah.
works. But the flip side is the jewel box, which is like, you know what? We're going to get a buyer that's going to not look at the exact price per square foot, but they're going to walk in and they're going to say, wow, this is absolutely incredible.
Yeah, and look, there's less typical developers who will do the jewel box model because there's so much more inherent risk. I think the jewel box model is more for developer clients or
Mhm.
people who are like, let's say end users, like myself, right? Like I would probably do a jewel box concept over a typical developer because you'll get your number if you can wait. If you have exit strategies, if you don't mind renting it for through a soft market, if that's how long it takes by the time you're ready for it to wait for the market to appreciate, you always get it.
Mm.
Um, but the typical developer is going to want comps and they're going to want to feel like they maximize the value of whatever they
Absolutely.
buy.
Yep, and they're gonna find safety. A developer will generally find safety in, like, okay, so we bought it for 2,000,000. We're gonna add, we're gonna build
Right.
all this square footage for whatever, and the average price per square foot, if we get somewhere close to that, we're gonna walk away with a great number. The jewel box thing is a lot harder to underwrite, and I'll just put another point on that is that, I had the opportunity to brainstorm with a billionaire developer who's since passed away, Sam Zell. And Sam Zell made his billions by building these, generic homes in the suburbs. And then after he sold his portfolio, I don't know how much time went by, but he shifted his whole focus and he said, "You know what? Right now I'm investing only in 24-hour cities." And he was investing and buying and building really nice units that were way smaller and really nice in walking distance. He had his criteria, he had his buy box, right? And he was expecting the end product to sell for way more than anything else that was on the market. Not necessarily the total price.
Price per square foot.
Right.
Right. So he's still, so if the average, condo there is 1.2 million, Sam Zell might be landing at 1.1 million, but it's half the size. So he's
Yeah.
charging a fortune per square foot, but he's delivering something that when somebody walks in, they're like, wow, this is different. And then
Yeah.
what they're really doing is they're looking at, a buyer is looking at what's my monthly payment. And so the monthly payment to live in one that's, 40% larger, but is so generic, as opposed to this one that I love, and the monthly payment is exactly the same, or maybe even a little less. I'm going to go for the one that's 30% less square footage.
Yep.
Well, I think price per square foot, and this is really important, is a data point metric. It is not
Yes.
an end all be all by any means, because there is a principle called diminishing returns that is very real. Like, if you can't find another house that's sold for $10 million, you can't use price per square foot thinking automatically you're going to get $10 million if the next closest comp is 6, right?
Mhm,
Like, there's no proof of concept that anybody will pay that in
mhm,
this
mhm,
market.
mhm, mhm.
Sure, anyone can get lucky, but most very knowledgeable developers are not going to base their sale or their purchasing or their investment strategy on luck,
And
right?
and to use the crudest, to put into math, using the to illustrate Nisha's point in the crudest way, basically, we're looking at it. Nisha and I are looking at a neighborhood, and it's selling all day long at $1,000 per square foot, and the houses are between 5 and 6,000 square feet. They're getting $1,000 all day long, so they're selling at $5 and 6,000. Nisha and I are like, hey, well, let's just build a 10,000 square foot house and expect to get 10 million. That's a challenge.
Well, and also you have to mind things like your lot, your backyard, how much
Mhm.
grass you have, yard. There's a lot of amenities that are outside of just typical square footage that buyers in certain price points want. On the project that we're doing that we're targeting 20 million, we had an option to maximize square footage and build an ADU. And I said it's going to completely invade your backyard and it's going to ruin that kind of feeling of
Mhm.
having this estate style property with all the privacy. So we opted not to build the ADU. We're going to lose out on 7 or 800 square feet. I also said we need a 3-car garage with extra high ceilings for lifts, because that's what's going to be important to somebody. So what we're doing is we're technically getting one of the garage bays permitted as an ADU,
Mm,
but we're going to have it kind of be more open for somebody to be able to customize as they want.
mhm,
Because I just don't think people pay just for square footage
mhm,
alone.
mhm.
They pay for everything else, all the amenities, the space, the feeling that somebody
The
gets.
experience.
Mhm.
And one variable inevitably impacts another. So you got to look at the holistic whole
For sure.
dynamic in order to actually value the property.
And to sum up Nisha's advice in this area is to um, get the buyer, the avatar, who is going to be the likely buyer, and let's build toward them.
Yep.
That's
Every part of investing strategy, correct investment strategy in what we're talking about in real estate and even in sales starts with that integral question.
Mhm,
Who is the buyer?
mhm.
Yep.
And when you're the seller, people do not think about that. And the other thing, I'm
By the
sure.
way, they don't have to, right? That's
Mhm.
why we're here.
Yeah.
That's our job.
Yep.
Our job is to be able to tell you these are the 3 groups I think the buyer are, and I want you to hear this because usually they know because they are one of those people
Mhm,
and or their neighbor is one of those
mhm,
people. And then all of a sudden it makes sense. It hits home, it jives. They get
mhm,
what we're doing
mhm.
here. And then they appreciate it,
And
hopefully.
and one of the things, the point of the podcast really is to give knowledge to people, to empower them to do their own thing. And I also have to say that another way to do it is to uh find someone, let's say that I have this much money to invest, and this is what I'm thinking about doing. Going out and finding a realtor who represents
Yes.
developers in that area, so that realtor knows how to underwrite those deals and can give you real guidance. Not the realtor that you like the best, not the realtor that sold the most homes in that area, but the realtor who's made a lot of money for developers is going to know how to underwrite those deals, and that's one great way to get into the investment
Yeah.
game with extra safety.
Yeah.
That is such good advice because we're in a soft market, depending on the area in Los Angeles. And I have a handful of clients that I have inherited. I've inherited bad deals.
Mhm.
I've
Sure.
inherited bad buys, things I never would have sold them. And by the way, I'm pretty upfront about it. I never would have sold this to you. And so I understand we need to get X, but the market is going to deliver you Y. I'm gonna try to get you as much as possible, but, like, this is a dog, right? Or this was I don't know what you underwrote, but you couldn't underwrite that price because that was one comp in a better market, and these factors have happened. I have never had a client lose money. They've always made money on anything I've ever sold them, most of them a lot of money. Like, my clients have made on single family spec for sure hundreds of millions of dollars, right? And that is something that I go to bed at night with the most confidence and relaxation, knowing that I don't sell a project that I wouldn't personally invest in. Doesn't mean I'm going to invest in every single one,
Mhm.
but if I don't see it and I don't feel if I don't feel it and I don't believe in it, why should I put someone else's money at
Mhm.
risk?
Credibility. Yep.
And I know we're gonna go to our
Yeah.
fire round. I can't help myself but to highlight a couple of points that Nisha made. And one of the things that you did in that deal when you said, you're taking a listing, it's and when you say it's a dog, I'm going to translate that. It is and you correct me if I'm wrong. It's a dog at that price. So
It's
Everything
at that price.
sells at the right price.
correct. So in other words, it could be a magnificent home that would trade in within a week at $4 million. Now you've got a $5.5 million price tag on it. It's now this amazing home at $4 million is now a dog because of the price. But what Nisha did was when she said, if you're my client or if you're my client, Nisha's the one that's doing this, you know, when she says, look, I would not have sold you this property. She is gone from adversary, which I talk about a lot, to so Josh is saying to me, you know what? Hey, I need 5.5 million for this house because I paid this and this is the amount of money I put into it and da da da. And if I don't get 5.5 million out, I'm gonna hire a realtor that's gonna tell me I'm gonna get 5.5 million. Um, one of the scripts around that, which is I hate to even use the word script because it's just it comes from the heart from Nisha. I can tell, and by her saying, "Look, look, Josh, I would not have sold you this house." Okay. Now what I'm doing is I'm getting out of the adversarial position with him. I'm getting on the other side of the table with him. And now I'm saying to Josh, hey, let's work together.
Yeah.
This is all the buy is already done. Now you want to get out of the house because you're going to move to San Francisco or whatever your reason is you've decided to sell. Let's work together to do the best that we can with what we have. And so now I've positioned it instead of like, you're never going to get 5.5 million. Now we have an adversarial
You
position.
you look, I think it's always important with leading with the most honest truth, which is I want to get the most money possible for you, right? Because 100%, I want that outcome for you because I like positive, happy transactions. But more than that, from a very pragmatic business sense, the more money you make, the more money I make, right? That's another bit of commission for
Mhm.
every million
Yep.
dollars more, every
Mhm.
every $100,000 more.
Yep.
But the reality is the market doesn't care what you thought it was going to be worth, or the market doesn't care what you paid if you bought at a different time. Today's market cares how it stacks up to the rest of the inventory and whether or not they see value in what you're offering,
Mm,
right?
that's right.
And so for me, that is something really important to communicate with
Mhm.
clients.
Mhm.
And I think there's a way, obviously, sometimes it's tough to be that direct
Mhm.
because it's hard. It's a really painful process to know you're going to lose money on
Mhm.
something. And that's a lot of money to lose sometimes. We're
Mhm.
talking millions of dollars. and it was just the wrong buy. And when I look at what happened, I would say 9 times out of 10, they trusted someone who had no business selling them that.
Correct.
They trusted an agent who didn't really know the market, who didn't do enough business, who probably was greedy. I'll tell you one story about development because it's relevant. And it was a very humbling but formative experience. It was in my first year of selling real estate, and I had a development deal under contract for 2.5 million. I'm young. That's a pretty decent commission check.
Mhm.
And I had told my mentor at the time, I said, look, I'm selling this to these developers. We're under contract. They're going through DD. And he goes, let me just see it. Let me just see the project. Right. So I said, okay. So we went, pulls me to the side later, and he goes, I wouldn't sell this to them. I just don't think that you're going to get their exit. Maybe you will, but I really don't think you are. And this was in a market that was really hot. Right.
Mhm.
But he's like, I just don't see it. But it's your deal. You do what you want with it. So I slept on it. And the next morning I called after I woke up. I called my client and I said, you know what? I got his opinion and he thinks there's a bit of risk on this deal. And I
Mhm.
couldn't, in good conscience, not tell you that.
Mhm.
And they were so appreciative, they became long term clients. But
Mhm.
I walked away from a meaningful commission when I needed it,
Mhm.
right? Because I was like a new agent, because I chose to do the right thing on behalf of my clients and not sell them a dog.